Hello, my name is Kareem Diallo. Welcome to my video research project, where I plan to cover the economics of the renewable energy transition based on the contents of Week 10, Lecture 17, Energy Economics. The most scrutinized energy sources in this topic are fossil fuels, the most popular of which is petroleum. Currently, petroleum and its derivatives dominate energy sources used for transport and mobility, although public appetite for change has led to a new wave of policy and technological development that has accelerated a move to electric power sourced from renewables. Think electric cars, like Tesla. Despite its issues, it is still important to pursue these green goals for two reasons. The first, a reduction in emissions, and the second, energy independence. This also applies to the United States, although, since the war in Ukraine has begun, the US has become the #1 producer of oil in the world and has increased its foreign exports. Its standing as a petroleum powerhouse creates a lack of incentives to transition as a country and economy. Much of US prosperity is tied to the petrodollar, that is, the fact that most of the petroleum bought and sold across the world is purchased in dollars. This has significantly boosted its economy and has historically shaped its policy decisions.
Oil reserves.
Oil? Excuse me 1 second. Operation Golden Eagle is a go.
Still, with concerns over energy supply, renewables could help increase total productions, playing a crucial role in energy independence. One of the primary drawbacks behind renewable energy is that it is unreliable at scale. Renewable energy is dependent on the environment, for example, sunlight for solar or wind for turbines. This will present challenges if the entire grid transitions to renewables. This is in contrast to fossil fuels, which are constantly available on demand. Additionally, renewable energy projects have high upfront fixed costs, requiring subsidies from the government to drive down costs to the end consumer and stimulate demand. For example, hydroelectric dams are very expensive, often requiring billions to construct and operate, which increases prices to consumers as projects seek a return in the short term. Think back to net present value, where the initial costs are not discounted, or at least are very little discounted. Why? Because they are incurred in the first periods, whereas a lot of the benefits tend to be more spread out. Benefits further in the future experience more discounting and as such have a lower contribution to the net present value. To offset this, producers might try to increase prices in the short term. These don't have as much of a discount factor and as such have a higher contribution. For similar cases where companies are not incentivized to increase output due to costs of supply, the government can step in and subsidize production. One example are current US biodiesel incentives, where the government provides financial assistance to landowners and operators that establish, produce, and deliver biomass for use in biofuels. These subsidies and incentives produce opportunity costs for the government, as funds could be used for other emission abatement projects or societal issues, such as unemployment or healthcare. However, in exchange for the significant costs, renewables offer key advantages. For example, reduced carbon emissions. This is becoming an increasingly popular and important issue for society, as the external costs of the past 200 years of human activities have an accelerated effect on our environment and lead to more external costs, such as the loss of habitat and wildlife. Two topics covered through our ACE310 course. To this end, combining fossil and renewable resources represents the cheapest and currently the most efficient way to abate emissions. Energy security. Home-produced, renewable energy can shield nations from supply and price shocks, where energy-dependent nations, primarily nations for whom their economic activity is closely tied to energy exports, are more sensitive to price fluctuations. One such example is Saudi Arabia, where GDP and long-term prosperity is tied to petroleum prices. This is equally true for import-dependent nations, where energy prices can have severe economic consequences. One such example is Germany, where post-Russia-Ukraine war, increases in energy prices as a result of a lack of availability all of a sudden put a severe strain on industry, more specifically manufacturing. Keep in mind that Germany hosts a lot of automobile manufacturers, but also builds other projects, for example, Siemens and Bosch with train rails. Increased energy prices increase the cost of production, decreasing sales, and as a result of which, resulting in an economic contraction. Now, in these cases, renewable production can help shield from the overall energy price changes by opening access to output, rather than energy supply contraction as a result of increased prices. Now, staying on topic with the example of the German economy and energy independence, you'll notice in front of you a foreign versus domestic supply graph. This graph has three curves: a green curve denoting foreign supply, a blue curve denoting demand, and a red curve denoting domestic supply. The red curve does not extend all the way up because the country is incapable of producing its own energy. In this example, the country will use domestic supply up until the intersection of the red curve and the green curve, because from area 0 to Q1, the price of domestic produced energy is lower than that of foreign supply. However, from that point onwards, not only are they not capable of producing their own energy, but foreign supply would be cheaper. In this example, the total energy supply is denoted by Q2. The quantity demanded from foreign sources is Q2 minus Q1, and the quantity demanded from domestic sources is Q1. So what would happen if the price of foreign supply were to increase? Well, in this example, the green curve shifts upwards. Because of the increased price of foreign supply, demand for foreign sources decreases from Q2 minus Q1 to Q3 minus Q1. However, because the country does not produce its own energy, unfortunately, the quantity demanded from domestic sources remains at Q1. This results in an overall energy contraction, which is very bad for many countries who are not able to produce their own energy, because it hinders economies like manufacturing or even you at home, where you might have to pay more money for your energy bills. So, what would happen if this country were to invest into renewable resources? Well, renewable resources can be produced domestically. This is very useful, as a result of which the domestic supply curve would not only become longer, but would also likely shift to the right, because the increased availability of energy would decrease the costs. In this example, despite the price of foreign supply increasing, and therefore moving from what was Q2 to Q3, which Q3 is now Q2, because they're able to produce their own energy, they're able to offset the decreases in foreign energy supply or demand for foreign energy to now increase their demand for domestic supply. And in this situation, they are far more immune to price shocks than they would be otherwise. If Germany had been capable of ramping up, or at least quickly ramping up, its new domestic energy supply, it would have actually likely offset the recession and significantly increased their economy at this point. This highlights the very, very important aspect of renewable energy supply, and one big reason why many countries pursue it. If you're not able of completely domestically producing your own energy supply, or at least being energy independent, as we would call it, this now gives you far more flexibility, despite the fact that you would, of course, incur higher costs if the foreign supply, or at least the price of foreign supply, were to increase. Now, once again, remaining on topic with the course, but this time referring back to the United States, we're going to talk about subsidies. The US currently employs two policy tools to incentivize the renewable energy transition. The first is emission standards. The second are subsidies. In front of you, you'll see a simple supply and demand curve, here denoting the costs of supply. By implementing a subsidy, the government can make sure that the supply curve shifts down by the same amount as that subsidy. This increases the quantity supplied while making sure that the per unit cost to the producer is lower. By doing so, they lower the cost of the good to the end consumer, therefore increasing consumption. Additionally, the government can implement subsidies on demand. You'll see in front of you the same supply and demand graph. This time, the demand curve has shifted up by the amount of the subsidy. Unfortunately, by increasing the demand, the producers are able to somewhat raise their price. This is denoted by the area change from P dash to P1. This means that the government has to incur additional expenses as producers now raise their prices. However, this still stimulates demand because the subsidy extends from P dash to P double dash. In turn, this has the effect of increasing the quantity demanded from Q1 to Q dash. Subsidies on demand lower the cost to the end consumer. And while this incurs additional expenses to the government, they still sustain increased demand in the long term. Now, important to note throughout this topic is that currently governments are trying to hit a moving target. Renewable energy production and its adoption will likely depend on the price of fossil fuels and the current cultural appetite for renewable resources. Please feel free to share any ideas you have with me or any corrections. I really enjoyed making this video and thank you for a lovely course. I'm very sorry that this video is slightly longer. It was just a lot to include in a very short period. However, I tried to keep it relevant to the course and understandable without going super into depth, because otherwise I could have made a 1-hour video regarding the topic and I would have found it fun. I'm not sure you would have enjoyed it as much, so really apologies for the longer video and thank you for sitting through it. Have a lovely day and a lovely winter holidays. Thank you.